Welcome to a Fresh Perspective podcast, catering to the latest in ingredient trends, consumer insights, and food news. Brought to you by Pt.1.
Welcome to a Fresh Perspective podcast, the podcast where we talk about everything food. I'm Jenny Colzer, your host. Today, we're talking about sustainability in the baking industry. And I'm joined by Charlotte Atchley, editor of Baking and Snack, Marjorie Helmer, president of Cypress Research, and Deanna Visser, vice president of sustainability at Pt.1. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Nice to be here.
Today, we are going to be discussing a recent study commissioned by Baking and Snack in partnership with the American Bakers Association. The study was conducted by Cypress Research. The study dives into understanding baking, ingredient, and equipment manufacturers' commitment to company sustainability initiatives in the industry. For our conversation today, we're going to specifically look at the importance of sustainability in a company's business over the next 5 years. So, Marjorie and Charlotte, what was the goal of this study? Can you dive a little bit deeper into ESG, which is the environmental, social, and governance initiatives?
So, yes, this was an online industry survey, Jenny, and it was fielded in July of this year, hot off the press. And we were targeting wholesale bakeries and their supply chain partners. We heard from ingredient and equipment suppliers in addition to bakers. And you're right, in addition to just that goal of digging into sustainability, we really wanted to go deeper. We tapped into business priorities that professionals view as key to their company's success over the next 5 years and where sustainability fits in with those priorities. We also wanted to identify specific environmental, social responsibility, and economic, or what we call governance-related company initiatives that are currently in place or that companies are considering. And then among those initiatives, those company initiatives, do companies have actual formal targets in place to measure the program impact and help guide further development efforts within their companies to find out where companies are with this?
Yeah,
Okay,
like Marjorie
excellent.
said, we really wanted to set a benchmark with this study for how the industry is doing regarding environmental, social responsibility, and governance, those three pillars of sustainability, because we know that sustainability is a really big priority for the baking industry, but we really wanted to quantify that commitment and also eventually be able to do the study again and get some trending data to see how that commitment is changing. And then also the definition of sustainability has evolved so much over the past 10, 15 years to include not only environmental initiatives, but also that social responsibility piece and that governance piece. So we really wanted to create something really robust to get a really great snapshot of where the baking industry is at.
Nice. So as reflected in the top 6 business areas on the data table, right? So the operational success is the most prioritized out of the top 6. Why do you think that environmental, social, and governance practices fall in priority for every industry sector compared to these other business initiatives, Charlotte?
So yeah, like you said, we wanted to start the study by seeing how sustainability initiatives stacked up against how baking companies and their allies were prioritizing sustainability initiatives compared to their other business priorities. And what we found was more companies ranked them on a 4 and a 5, which was very important versus extremely important to their business success over the next 5 years. And those were the top 3 were streamlining and improving operations, increasing market share, and having a highly skilled workforce. And so those are obviously really critical to your day-to-day operations and getting things done and making your business successful. You can't have a successful business for 5 years without those 3 things. However, what we did find out was that even though environmental, social responsibility, and governance were at the bottom of the list, there was still the vast majority of baking companies that responded ranked those as a 4 and a 5 for their business success over the next 5 years. I think the numbers are in the high 60s to high 70%. So that really shows that the baking industry sees that these 3 pillars of sustainability are really critical for business success in the long term. So even though they were at the bottom because they might not necessarily contribute to your day-to-day operational success, though some of them do, they're still really important.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're showing up, I think, is
Big deal.
is first of all pretty amazing
If
at
we had
all.
done this study 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I'm not sure those numbers would have been like that.
Right. Because if you're looking forward to 5 years from now, it's like, yeah, we're going to be growing the business, right?
Right,
And they're
right.
not going to be looking at social responsibility or the planet. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm heartened by the fact that it's on the list. So, Deanna, a minute ago, I said, I know Corbion has ESG goals. So, can you tell me a little bit about how Corbion got started with sustainability and the ESG programming?
Yeah, so Corbion as ingredient manufacturer, is strategically already focused on sustainability for quite a while. I would say for more than 10 years, 10, 15 years probably. And we started building the strategy really, based on assessing our value chain and assessing, what are now the environmental and social topics that are in the different stages of our value chain and which ones are relevant at those different stages to identify the priorities, because sustainability is a very broad area. There's many topics that you could focus on. So it's really important to set priorities, especially when you start. That is the assessment we initially did, and it was done together with our executive committee to also ensure the relevance for the business, of course, but also to ensure the support from the top and make sure it's really integrated in the company. And then we defined targets for some areas where we really felt those are areas that need attention, but also areas where we felt we could really make some progress. So it was areas where we were also somewhat comfortable that we could do some meaningful work. Because of that, I think having then some success in those areas also made the benefits of having a sustainability program with KPIs and with targets became more clear. And that then, of course, also increased our confidence that we are able to deliver on the targets that we set. So I think we started by assessing where to prioritize, focus, make progress, build confidence, and then also see what the benefits are that it brings.
Not to mention company culture. I think that it actually truly does have a trickle-down effect. I know that working at Corbion for the last 4 years, first of all, in marketing, my favorite stories are the sustainability stories. They're the most heartwarming and they make me super proud to work here. The fact that pride exists makes me want to contribute even more. And so that changes, how I view it. And I think a good deal of my coworkers as well, which of course contributes to that company culture. So at Corbion, we have this company culture. We've been working on the ESG programming. I love the story of where it started. I love the stories that come out of the efforts. When you looked at the data, it seems that the influences came from different places. So in wholesale baking and equipment manufacturing, they were influenced externally, and then ingredient manufacturers were influenced internally to become more sustainable. From your perspective, what explains the difference in those motivations? Why are some people being pushed by their customers and then some companies are motivated internally?
Yeah, so I think there are two possible reasons for the difference in motivation. First of all, ingredient manufacturers like Corbion, they have a global focus, and the sustainability maturity level, including customer expectations, really differs per region globally. However, sustainability strategy is typically global. The fact that we are a global company and that we already had customer requests for this in certain regions, it also helped us or stimulated us to define a more global program and really a strategy. And next to that, Corbion is also active in different market segments. So that can be different for other ingredient manufacturers, but Corbion is also active in non-food. And also there are areas that are maybe more mature, where we already had really customer requests a long time ago. That also stimulated us to become more active. So I think if you look back, also at Corbion, it was initially more driven by customer expectations and customer demands, but then it really evolved and it became really part of the strategy because we saw the benefits that it could bring.
The customer demands are also so different from the ingredient side to the equipment side, right? Like the bakers are motivated by the demands of their retailers and consumers, but Whole Foods doesn't necessarily need proof that the supplier of a baker's oven is also doing sustainability work. They're just happy about the energy reduction that the oven is providing, whereas they want proof that the bakers, for example, enzyme blends are also being sourced in a sustainable way. And the ingredient manufacturer has to then be able to provide that paper trail to support that, hey, yes, we are doing that work for you. And so the ingredient supplier just being closer to the problem, I guess, with being involved in agriculture and sourcing of ingredients, I think just makes them naturally really more ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly. And also our global supply chain. I mean, I talked about us being active globally in different regions with customers globally, but of course also our supply chain is global. And that also means that there are different topics that you need to cover.
Well, and if we just zero in on the US market, I think another motivation, another reason that ingredient suppliers pull ahead in having it be part of their culture, part of their strategic planning, is possibly related to workforce. The skills gap in US manufacturing, specifically within baking, is really putting that downward pressure on bakers to lean hard into their ingredient suppliers because they don't have the staffing and the deep benches that they once had. This, in turn, means that those ingredient suppliers really do need to have this as central to who they are so that they are ready and well positioned to respond and anticipate customer demands, what consumers are going to want out of their baked goods. And so they're leaning into really being there for their customers, their bakery customers.
It definitely benefits these companies to have a sustainability strategy. And I think it definitely benefits them to have that strategy be elevated to the level of a global strategy or whatever the top level strategy is of that company. Maybe they don't have a global reach, but a regional reach or a national reach, right? What other benefits can we talk about that maybe you found out about in your study?
So I think over time at Corbion, when we started defining our program and set our first targets, and we really started to see some benefits, I think that one of the top benefits from having a sustainability program and initiatives is really employee engagement. It helps attract and retain employees. People like to work for a company with a clear purpose, a clear ambition, and a clear program related to sustainability. Yeah, if I meet new colleagues at Corbion, I hear quite often that they have joined, amongst others, because of our sustainability program. So I think that is really a continued benefit. Another benefit is cost savings. And many of these sustainability initiatives are related, so let's say energy reduction, waste reduction, being more efficient. It also saves costs. And sometimes having a slightly different goal because it's sustainability related may inspire people to look at it in a bit of a different way. And by that also bring up new creativity, create innovation, create new ideas about how to perform certain processes, and that can save costs. Then, of course, we see it's valued by customers a lot. So I think there's quite a few examples where we had certain commercial successes because we were able to provide good input to the questions that they had, for instance, about our supply chain, where are the raw materials coming from, and do we have the traceability data, or do we have the life cycle assessment data? Yeah, and then of course reputation. So that's more of a general area where I also think it can have a lot of benefits to have a clear strategy and also to be able to communicate about it holistically and with examples that show that you also sort of practice what you preach.
The fact that having robust programming and knowing how to communicate that both internally within the organization so that you're retaining your employees who want to be part of making the world a better place. I mean, that's huge. And Deanna covered that. But it also attracts talent to your organization because people want to come and be part of that, changing the world and making the world a better place. You made a good point as well, Deanna, that you can grow your business this way. It's no longer about posing. Companies are making real changes. And if you are tracking, if you're able to put KPIs in place and show the impact of some of these programs, then you're making a real change. And so I think putting those KPIs in place is something we wanted to start tracking and see how that grows over time too.
That is so excellent. And I think that that is probably the most important piece of this for many reasons, right? Track it. And then you have proof positive. So, when Deanna mentions, hey, it actually is a way to build your business. Well, there are people that are going to be like, prove it. Right. And so if you have the KPIs behind it, then it's like, okay, here you go. Here are the numbers and the P&L sheets or whatever it is that you need to show. But then I think also when we talk about talent and recruiting talent, I always think about the fact that we're always aging, we're always changing, right? And the demographics of our society are doing exactly the same thing. And so I think about the fact that I must work for a company that I believe in. And I'm not even of the millennial age. I mean, like, I'm older than those, and I must work for a company that I believe in. I can't get motivated otherwise. And so Corbion was the perfect fit for me because of that. And I think that the people that are coming into the workforce right now made me feel even stronger about working for a company that they believe in, that a company that's going to leave a wonderful world for their children.
We'll continue this discussion on the next episode of A Fresh Perspective Podcast. Until next time, preserve what matters.